Welcome back, listeners, to another exciting episode of the BSB Podcast. Today we're bringing you yet another episode from deep in our vault. However, before we travel to fair Verona to explore Broadway's Romeo and Juliet, like, follow, and subscribe to us on all social media platforms at bsb.insider. And spoiler warning, if you haven't seen the Broadway production of Romeo and Juliet and don't want any spoilers, stop this video now. Thanks again for joining us, and enjoy the show.
Joining me as always is RJ Miller-Zelinko. How you doing today, sir?
No, just a tad chilly.
Just a tad chilly. Sorry, I should have asked in Old English. How art thou?
There we go. Yeah, if only we did this
character.
entire thing in Shakespearean lingo that no one would understand.
As most people probably don't understand this version of the show. And with that, before we get started, please, if you have not seen it, if you don't want spoilers, if you want to wait for some pro shot if it's coming, I don't know, you might want to turn away. If not, welcome to Venice. Is that where they're at? Verona. Sorry. They're in Verona. As we break down Romeo and Juliet. So, as always, we're going to start at the beginning, as all things do. What grade were you in when you had to read Romeo and Juliet? And how deep did your class go?
Was it freshman year? Freshman or sophomore year? Or maybe, did I read it twice?
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Here's the problem. I went to private school, and so the curriculums were very, not standardized. And maybe I only read, an excerpt, and then I read the whole thing. Either way, I think I read it twice, and both times, one of the times I think we had to do, the annotated note-taking, and
Sure.
That's a nightmare. And
Absolutely.
I didn't know what I was really reading.
I mean, that's fair. I mean, Shakespeare is not meant to be read. I think that's something that a lot of teachers and educators forget, is that Shakespeare's supposed to be seen. He's not supposed to be necessarily read. It's a play.
Yeah, I mean, I remember, shout out to my high school English teachers if they're happen to be watching or listening to this, because I do think they did a very good job at trying to make it entertaining, trying to think of creative ways for us to learn about it and read it and get through it, because we needed to. But man, it is such a crazy thing. Looking back, now I'm just going way off track, but I'm it is such a crazy thing to standardize. Why? I get learning about Shakespeare, but why is that the one person where you know what, this is really interesting. Let's take a whole semester or more to learn about, whether it was this play or any of his others. It's just,
Sure.
Why did we do that? Anyway, we're back.
I was in 9th grade when we read Romeo and Juliet, and I think we did in senior year. I think we did King Lear. We at least watched King Lear, I want to say. But yeah, there is such an emphasis on Shakespeare and his stories, which I get that he's kind of the basis of modern day storytelling. I know that he kind of changed how people saw material, but it is really weird that you're reading Romeo and Juliet at such a young age, and most likely or not, you're watching the Leonardo DiCaprio film, which our teacher was set against, and she will remain unnamed, but she was set against watching that one, so she made us watch a National Geographic. It was about two rivaling monkey families in India, in a city. And of course, we're 9th graders, and when there's a scene, monkeys doing, she's freaking out over the remote, and we never made it through because we were so giggly. So, that being said, 9th graders, Romeo and Juliet, it's a very interesting combination. I think that's what I'm trying to say here. But for some reason, that this story is considered timeless. Why do you think that this still appeals to so many people?
Truthfully, I'm not sure I don't know if appeals is the right word. I think we all, can we call it a trauma? I think we all have this experience where we had to read it and we know it enough. I think there's so many comparisons to it in other things. Like, even just musical theater wise, like, I'm thinking, how many shows have we said, like, oh, this is very, like, Romeo and Juliet-y, which then translated to, like, West Side Story-ish, which then translated to something else. Like, maybe it's the OG love story that's, like, the most and over the top. And maybe that's why it's appealing. But truly, when you think of it down to its core, in regards to, like, what age they are and the just insanity that it is kind of troubling that we're having young people be like, here, let's set you up for true failure in all of your relationships by thinking that teenagers will fall in love in seconds and then kill themselves over each other shortly thereafter.
I think that a lot of people forget that it's actually the tragedy of Romeo and Juliet, because we shortened it down, but, like, it is at its core, it is a tragedy. It's supposed to end in death. It's supposed to end in sadness. I think a lot of times people think it's a love story. And yes, it is a love story. I'm not discounting the fact that Taylor Swift wrote a song about it. But it is the most tragic love story you could possibly aim for from this genre. People become attached to it. And maybe you're right. Maybe it's a trauma bonder of, like, well, we all had to experience this book together. We might as well aim for the love that you just want to kill yourself over. Wow, that was kind of dark. I'm sorry. But that being said, they made they adapted this for Broadway, like, now, like, this year. Like, there's still something that collectively, be it trauma or whatever it is, something about this appeals to people because, I don't know, maybe it's the stars, because that's why we went to go see it. Maybe it's Jack Antonoff, who people like his music, but something appeals about the story because we were in a crowded room full of people who were eating it up. Absolutely eating this up.
Which, to be fair, like, I know of people that I was friends with in high school who loved Shakespeare. So I do take a little bit back, because I think that those people would be the ones filling the seats today. Like, they loved the language, they loved the way in which it was written. And so that makes sense to me. Like, if this is your thing, you are in a very small group of people, but you are in a group of people.
Sure. And
so that I would say it's the same people. That's why there's, Shakespeare in the Park. That's why there's still theaters in the round. That's why there's what am I thinking of? The outdoor theaters.
Like the Greek ones?
Yeah. Like, where Shakespeare stuff is performed. Like, it's still, I know even locally we have theaters that regularly in the summer do Shakespeare, explicitly do Shakespeare shows, and people come, obviously. So there is a draw, I think, to a certain audience. I just happen to not be that audience.
There is an interesting thing, I think, where... Ooh, I'm about to maybe get some enemies. No, I think that there are some people who love it for the superiority of Shakespeare. Does that make sense? Like you should love the classics, and sometimes it's like, yeah, I love the classics, but I don't want to read Wuthering Heights all the time. Because there is a beauty in it, and this was a big jumping off point for modern day theater. And again, I use modern day, even though this was hundreds of years ago. But there is this, like, I think that there's certain people that this connects with. And I'll be honest, I don't know if I would have went to go see it if it didn't have Kit Connor in it. Like, so I think, like, that for me was, like, obviously the draw of the show. But for others, they were there. You could tell that they loved the source material. And for them, I hope that they loved this show.
Yeah. I don't know. And it's like... It's like it's its own. I think of people who, like, really understand math or science really well. Like, they speak that language. Like, this feels that's like that same thing, or any other language. I mean, it is a language. Like Shakespearean is its own way of, so I think, yeah, if you've spent time getting to know it and you feel strongly about it or are super into it, there is a beauty to it. I think that I can even appreciate not understanding all of it. So
Sure.
I guess in that way, it's timeless.
Sure. And I guess jumping into that, we're going to talk about the story of this. So this is actually, no, I want to take a step backwards. I want to go back to when this was announced, RJ, because I think that that's a very telling moment of what to expect when you go into the show and the story. Do you remember when it was announced? Because I think I sent it to you. I might have been crying. Yeah, it fits. But when I sent this to you, when it was announced, I think we had just gone back from our first trip to New York. We had seen Joe Locke on stage for Sweeney Todd, one half of the Heartstoppers, checked off my list, and then they announced Romeo and Juliet. Right off the bat, when they said Kit Connor, Rachel Zegler, I was like, done. We're going back. And you didn't question it, which, thank you, I appreciate that. You live into my delusions. But it was poised in the commercial as like a modern day retelling, because they're like dressed modern. They are like driving cars in the commercial. Jack Antonoff music is playing in the background. These announced that he's going to kind of be doing some musical compositions for the thing. There was a lot of pieces of it that I thought this was a modern, like, we're bringing Romeo and Juliet to today. Kind of like a and Juliet, but a little more of the not twisting the story, but adapting the story. Would you kind of agree with how it was kind of phrased going into the commercial?
Yeah. I mean, my very limited exposure would have been that understanding that it was like that the entirety was modern.
RJ, what did we get in that theater? What was that story of Romeo and Juliet?
I mean, it was a twist.
Putting it mildly. I mean, it was actually a one-for-one adaptation of probably the original source text. Like, I don't know how else to describe that. It's all Greek to me.
Yeah. I mean, and yet it was modern.
Okay.
There were I would be really interested in seeing the script against the source, because there were some words that were just very like slang today, So I'm like, maybe did we modern, like, and it's been a minute since I've read Romeo and Juliet. So I'm like, was it modernized, but so subtly that you literally didn't even know?
It's possible. It's totally possible. This show is very, well, spoiler alert, people. I think I already gave a spoiler, but just in case, it is Romeo and Juliet. There's no denying it. It is very much right there in front of you in the middle of the round. But what was kind of, I want to say, off-putting, and so this reminds me, I remember being a teenager, maybe preteens, and my sister, when she went to Wayne State, had to go and see Othello at Wayne State's, like, it was for like a class, and she had to like give her critique of it, and it was Othello written as it was, but with costumes and sets from today. And that's exactly the vibe I got for this Romeo and Juliet. It was 100% like yes, there was a few words that felt updated. And sometimes even the way they were saying things, where it was kind of like the vernacular or the beats that you would expect from the way we talk now. But it was Old English. Very Old English.
I mean, yeah.
Do you feel like it was tough following the story or what was happening on stage because of the way they were talking? Because I feel like there was times where I just struggled to understand what was happening because I couldn't understand what they were saying.
Yeah. I mean, especially like the middle, I think. Like the beginning, I remembered enough to be like, okay, following. But The other thing that didn't super help me was the character switching.
Yes.
Because then I truly was like, who is what is where is when on top of what are they saying?
For sure. I think that that's definitely something to talk about. Other than Romeo and Juliet, everybody else was just switching. Like, Romeo was Kit Connor, Juliet was Rachel Zegler. They were very good in their roles. They knew what they were doing. They were the attraction of the round. But then you had all the other characters were fluid, flexible, and sometimes you didn't know who they were playing until they changed their voice, and sometimes you didn't catch that right away of like, oh, their tone changed, or they're using it like they've elongated their words, and like it was a very almost off-putting because you almost could never just like sit back and enjoy what you were watching because you had to always be on top of what is happening, which I guess is part of why you're there for the show. You should be on top of what you're watching, but you know what I mean? Like, you didn't get to just like enjoy it. You had to like actively participate every second that they're on stage.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it was analyzing, okay, well, who isn't on stage and who is on stage, which means that this character is this person. And we just saw a show, right, where there was a lot of character changes, but they at least assisted it with some type of like costume change, which some of them did for this, but it was either so subtle or it just wasn't clear. That it was just hard to follow. Like you did have to do a lot of work just to know what was happening.
Absolutely. There was a lot of mental gymnastics to appreciating what was happening. Other than the fact that the cast was beautiful. Like, that's the thing. I think like people, you were coming there for the beauty, you were coming there for the stars, but this wasn't when we saw Joe Locke for Sweeney Todd, you were seeing Joe Locke, but you were also seeing Sweeney Todd. Like, there was clearly like that connection, and I felt like I was going there to see Kit Connor, but not understanding anything else that was going on, other than the fact of like, I've read Romeo and Juliet before. I should know where we're at right now, and I couldn't put half of the scenes together. You know, again, is this because part of it was modernized, even though it was not? I mean, it could be, and I could. Maybe the show wasn't for me, which is possible.
Well, yeah, and it's definitely a very acquired taste in regards to when you have a set, when you have it in the round like that, you have it modern in regards to costuming, in regards to, I would say, even accents. Like, it's not like they changed their accent to be Shakespearean. It was just the words. Like, everything else was modern. The music, the background, the DJ, the set. It was just the literal things coming out of their mouth that mismatched everything else. And once again, maybe that's the draw to it, but it did make you kind of have to analyze exactly what was going on at all times.
Do you feel like the cast elevated the text at all? Like, do you feel like there was other than just being the draw, do you think that they made that show better?
There were moments, I think more towards the end. Once again, it was just so hard to appreciate, I think, the actors because you didn't really know what they needed to be doing because you were so focused on just trying to follow the plot. But there was some humor, and maybe it's just because, once again, after 2 hours, I finally understood where we were.
Sure.
But I remember there being a couple of points where I was like, oh, that's funny. Or, you know, the audience finally kind of got it. And even, I would say, the physicality of some of the scenes, there was a couple of scenes where they were really, literally sprinting up and down, which I thought somebody was gonna frickin' break a leg. Like, I was like, it is dark, these stairs are black, how is someone not running directly into the stage? Between that and going up and down ladders and the fight scene happening essentially on what seemed to be like a plush stage.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, I appreciated them for what I'm sure I know. I mean, memorizing that, all of that stuff is insane. So obviously they're all very talented. I just would love to see them in something else.
Sure. I do like that the story still was exactly what, again, if you know Romeo and Juliet, you know the story. But also, I feel like I also had trouble following along reading it. I remember being like, there's so many people, there's so many names, there's so many worlds going on together that was always hard to follow when Romeo and Juliet weren't in the scenes. I think that's when the show was the best. When you had Romeo and Juliet playing off of each other. And you could tell that they are fantastic actors. They're very good at their craft. The story really did shine at that point. And like, I guess like, how do you make a diamond shine? You just, like it's already like, there's a reason why it's a classic. But yeah, I think that there was definitely some points where you're just like, what is going on here? How am I supposed to enjoy this? Or like, I think something that we'll talk about in part 2 is just like, what was the vision and how did kind of like, what was I supposed to take away from that as like a viewer? Like, what was that piece of that I was missing from the puzzle? And there's a lot to appreciate. Like you said, they're very talented. I would love to see them in something else. Kit Connor, please come back to New York. We will be there. But what this is actually, this was just a very interesting take on the story. A story that, of course, that we all very much know. I guess before we end this segment, do you think that the story itself, in maybe modernizing it a little bit, do you think that it appeals to a younger audience? Like, do you think like maybe that's what's missing here? Is that like, this is Romeo and Juliet for 18-year-olds and we're 30?
I don't know, because I mean, I don't know the current curriculum either, but I'm like, is this story still something being told? I guess it has to be, because that theater was full of people.
Yeah.
But I can't say that as someone who is even older than us that I would see any appeal unless you were super into Romeo and Juliet specifically. Like, if I was just going to New York to see a show, I would never pick this. I just wouldn't. Even knowing nothing about it, I wouldn't.
I'd say the only reason you picked it was because I asked you to go see Kit Connor. Like, that's only because I watched a show that was aimed for 10 years younger than me. You know what I mean? Like, I'm sure there's an audience for it, and we're going to talk about that more in the second part, but like, this was just a very interesting take on the story of Romeo and Juliet. And so with that, we are running out of time. So look out for part 2 of our Romeo and Juliet discussion, where we'll be talking about the staging, the lights, all the technical things, the music ? So thank you again for joining us here in our box seats. Till next curtain call.